Good evening. Today is the 30th day of January 2016. And of course, it's, after 8 in the evening. Well, getting towards 8:30 in the evening. And today, I spent my entire afternoon, down in Watertown, Massachusetts. First it was meet a person who was doing, her doctorate dissertation on the autism, the self-advocacy movement, and the neurodiversity movement in the autism community, and also to take and attend the monthly meeting of our local chapter of the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. Important with the organization that I belong to. Then yesterday, as I was out, I had to be out with it, which of course yesterday was Friday. I had to be, be out with it with a friend of mine, that was also the executive director of Asperger Works, non-profit organization where I'm also on the board of directors. The two of us had to take a drive up to Concord, here in New Hampshire, to the Christa McAuliffe Planetarium to be at the winter fundraiser for the for the Able New Hampshire Disability Rights Organization, which is cross disability, with it. And of course, there was celebrating the 25th anniversary of the shutting down and the closing of the living hellhole state institution, the Laconia State School, which was the place where for like 60 or 70 years that, or almost 80 years or so, that New Hampshire citizens dumped their physically and developmentally disabled and intellectually disabled children. And many of the residents, who were there, lived out their entire lives in the institution. And of course, that hellhole got finally closed for good, 25 years ago. It's actually 25 years ago on Sunday tomorrow. And my Asperger autism friend, who's executive director of Asperger Works, and myself, we're both on the board of directors. We had to be up there at the Able New Hampshire Disability Civil Rights Organization fundraiser. Was it not to throw money at them? Was it but to take and make connections that our nonprofit organization requires in order to take and eventually start providing services not just for people in the Essex County region of Lower Merrimack River Valley in Massachusetts, but also in the more toward the upper Merrimack River Valley, north of the New Hampshire state line. That once organization's fully up and running, to start helping, that Asperger autism adults with employment, and I also got a chance to taught to one of the New Hampshire state representatives, who was one of the major allies of the disabled community here in the state of New Hampshire. And no, the person's not a Republican. That person is in the Democratic Party, because the Republican Party here in New Hampshire is totally under the control of the social Darwinist Tea Party movement. And, whether we have to take, my Asperger autism friend, and I, who are the board of directors of Asperger Works, we took and had to take and, make sure we speak to the right people to get the word out that our organization exists, that we're going to eventually need more funding, and that we're going to need, and that we need allies, to help our organization grow, and to change the dynamic and change the dismal results of the fact that most people with Asperger's syndrome, high functioning autism, the upper end of the autism spectrum, including PDD-NOS and NVLD, which is nonverbal learning disability, is also part of the autism spectrum. Because I know one of my one of my friends in the autism community was who I saw today at the ASEN meeting, Autism Self-Advocacy Network meeting, has NVLD, nonverbal learning disability, which, as I said, is part of the autism spectrum. That he also has severe hearing deficits, and he wears large hearing aids. He's not an old person. He's not elderly or middle-aged. He's actually a younger adult. And also made sure, we had, mingled talked to other people, and other people with disability, other different disabilities that were present there at the Able New Hampshire event, fundraising event at the Krista McAuliffe Planetarium in Concord, New Hampshire. And of course, one thing I saw there, was a little 2-year-old boy, with SMA type 2, which is spinal muscular atrophy type 2, a little 2-year-old boy in a wheelchair, in a little tiny wheelchair, and the kid had a mega positive attitude about himself, and about and wanted to take and do as much for himself as he could. That was totally different from my late mother, who had lost her left leg above the knee, back in 1991. And it's like, when she became disabled, because of her mental illness problems, she gave up. It was like, and always complained about her affliction. She has to say that she has to get better before she can do anything. That is the totally wrong attitude. And if you hear a disabled person who has become, who used to be able-bodied and who has become disabled, and they start articulating that attitude, with it, you gotta take and ram it right down their throat, to take and, okay, you don't do that, with it, just because you have a disability, and just because, just because I have a disability doesn't mean that I can't do anything. I take care of my own finances as best I can, even though I'm running in the red, in the hole, because of, I don't make enough on SSDI here in New Hampshire, meet the true cost of living in the state. I also, go out, volunteer, to the Derry, New Hampshire Community Public Access Cable TV, Derry, New Hampshire's in-town cable public access, with the government public access, which is not just for the to show town meetings, selectmen, and city town council meetings, it's for creating television programs for education and information for the people, created by the people, which I've been doing it for 12 years. So I get out and do. Plus also, a lot of people that I know with the autism spectrum, cerebral palsy disability spectrum, also have to take and rely on public transportation, but of course they live in the Boston area, but because there's no public transportation here, I have to rely upon myself to take and get myself out into the community in order to take and live in the community, and and if something happens to me where I get too old or too non-functional to take and to live on my own, I will eventually, as I age, probably by my 70s or so, hopefully I can live longer than my late father, if I just do some more trying to take better care of myself, I do have to lose more weight, but I have gone down at least 10 pounds, since the last time I saw my doctor, back in July, and I saw her again, the beginning, on Monday this week, and so also it is important to try to, as best you can, to look after your own health, and even if you have personal care aides and helpers, do not hesitate to take and if you're experiencing difficulties where you need to be seen by a doctor, do not procrastinate, because if something comes up, with your health, if you just sort of procrastinate and wait, the problem will get worse, and then cause you other problems further down the line that affects how you deal with your disability. So, that's important. And of course, it's also important, to just simply try as much as possible to get out into the community, not just to be around, not just to be, but also to take and be able to meet and network with other persons in the disability community, because all the other people in the disability community with intellectual disabilities, physical disabilities, developmental disabilities, even mental illnesses, they're all your peers. And we have to unite and to stick together, to support each other. Because if we do not support each other, that could lead to things like isolation, and isolation could cause severe mental illness problems, especially depression and issues with suicidal ideations, which are not good, which need to be dealt with promptly, and of course, as I said, mental health is important. And one thing that is, as I said, is keeping me psychologically stable is my connections in the community. Not just in the disability community, but I have a faith community, which I'm a part of, which also really gives a darn about me as a person, and totally accepts me as I am. There are some faith communities who do not like to have disabled people around. They say they're welcoming and so forth, but there are some faith communities that cannot deal with persons with developmental and intellectual disabilities. Because they see them as, disruptive, and making the rest of the faith community look bad. But that is a false, theological assumption, because, Jesus himself accepted everybody, the disabled, those who were totally the outcasts of society, and and nobody is an outcast. I'm not an outcast, and neither are any of you in the disability community. None of you are outcasts either. You are part of the community, and you have a right to be in the community, and you have the right to survive, to thrive, and to reach your full potential.